name is Barry Beagle. I'm a senior planner with the City of Manhattan Community Development Department. Thank you for viewing this introductory video of Article 5 of the Manhattan Development Code, Subdivision Standards. Article 5 works in conjunction with Article 9, Land Development Review, that governs the platting process and the procedure by which subdivision plats are reviewed and approved. Articles 5 and 9 act as the Manhattan Urban Area Subdivision Regulations, and together work to present complete plats of subdivision for review that have been prepared in accordance with all applicable standards. Subdivision approval, the act of dividing land into two or more parts, is the most fundamental process of city building. It is through the subdivision process that blocks and lots are formed, streets are laid out and networks developed, sidewalks are provided connecting residents to neighborhoods, parks, trails, and neighborhood conveniences. Public infrastructure, including water and sewer systems, are provided. Natural resources are protected, and opportunities for incorporation of parks, open space, and greenways are provided, and so on. Subdivision regulations shape the look and feel of the community by reflecting community values, goals, and objectives through implementation of city plans and policies to assure land is suitable for development. To complete whole communities, we need to have standards to how they are designed and built. That is the purpose of Article 5, Subdivision Standards. So let's take a closer look. Article 5 carries forward the existing standards of Article 10, Subdivision Layout Standards of the current subdivision regulations, and also includes some new and modified standards as well. The following represent some of the more notable changes. Subdivisions that result in changes in land use or in density along exterior lot lines must now incorporate buffer yards into the subdivision design. The greater the deviation in land use type or in development density between a proposed development and existing adjoining development will determine the type, width, and density of landscape buffer that is required to be provided. When required, the location and type of buffer yard is to be shown on the plat of subdivision. The subdivision standards of Article 5 also place a greater emphasis on the identification and preservation of significant natural, historic, cultural, and environmental resources. The principal objective is to design subdivisions with site resources in mind, resulting in increased energy conservation, increased property values, and an enhanced aesthetic quality throughout the city. A new subdivision development type included as part of Article 5 is a cluster development. Specific to residential land use, clustering development means grouping or directing new development to relatively less sensitive areas within a subdivision and away from more sensitive areas like steep slopes, woodlands, drainage ways, wetlands, floodplains, and riparian areas. Cluster subdivisions allow dwellings to be grouped together on smaller lots away from sensitive areas and to protect such areas through conservation easements and other legal mechanisms. Subdivisions will now be encouraged to include the integration of recreation areas, conservation areas, and other accessible open spaces into subdivision design. The location and design of open spaces is to provide access to the maximum number of properties, as well as access and visibility from public rights-of-way in the development. In addition, open space should be designed to provide interconnected greenways along drainage corridors and along rivers and streams, as well as to provide continuity of open space from one subdivision to the next. The incorporation of open spaces into subdivision design can not only protect sensitive natural resources, but preserve other character-defining features that will enhance the value of neighboring property and the neighborhood as a whole. These are but a few of the changes incorporated into the subdivision standards. So, let's take a look at some of the more traditional subdivision standards that all subdivisions must abide by. Block and lot design. The two fundamental components of subdivision design are blocks and lots. Blocks are larger areas that are typically bounded by streets. Blocks are divided into lots that represent the basic ownership unit upon which development will occur. Block design is a reflection of the type of development it is intended to support. Article 5 establishes standards that govern the length, depth, and shape of blocks to provide for adequate building sites taking into consideration topography and other factors. Article 5 also identifies and defines different types of lots and sets standards governing the shape, size, width, depth, and orientation of lots based on applicable lot size requirements of the zoning district in which located and their intended development. Transportation systems. Subdivisions are built on a functional hierarchy of streets. The type of street determines its primary function for mobility or direct property access, which in turn determines minimum rights-of-way width, access management, design speeds, intersection clearances, and so forth. The highest order of street within an urban setting is arterial streets. Arterial streets are intended to accommodate intercity mobility more than direct property access by transporting people and goods from one side of the community to the other. Based on the mobility of arterials, including higher design speeds, direct access to adjoining property is generally prohibited. The next order of street is collectors. Collectors are designed to collect traffic from local streets and transport them to the arterial street system. Unlike arterials, collectors may provide a certain level of access to property. And the most common type of street is the local street. Local streets are intended to provide direct property access to businesses and residential property. The design of transportation systems must also require subdivisions be designed with pedestrian and bicycle mobility in mind and set standards relative to the location and design of sidewalks, bicycle lanes, and trails. Not only must these improvements be provided, but connect to existing sidewalks, trails, paths, and routes for system continuity. As an example, the subdivision standards require that pedestrian access easements be provided from the end of a cul-de-sac to connect to existing and proposed sidewalks, trails, bicycle lanes, routes, or parks to enhance pedestrian and bicycle mobility by eliminating long, inconvenient, and circuitous routes. Pedestrian access easements also provide safe and convenient mid-block connections and bicycle routes to destinations such as schools and parks. Public improvements. Property proposed to be subdivided must have adequate public facilities and services to be suitable for development. This includes the availability, location, and design of water lines that are capable of supporting potable water supply and also have adequate capacity for firefighting purposes as well. Property proposed for development must also be connected to a sanitary sewer system and meet applicable design requirements. Subdivision development must also address the impact of increased stormwater runoff from a site as a result of development. This often includes the layout and design of storm sewer systems as well. There are many other standards contained in Article 5 that time does not permit to be covered through this introductory video. Overall, however, the subdivision standards of Article 5 are to promote the orderly, planned, economic, and efficient development of the Manhattan urban area. Thank you for joining me on this overview of Article 5 subdivision standards. Be sure to check out the other videos in this series regarding the Manhattan Development Code.